Good morning, children.
Morning.
We were discussing about parasitism in the previous class. Hope you have understood the topic and some of the important phenomenon also we had discussed. Resource partitioning, competitive release, interference competition. So I just want to know how far you have understood. One of you tell me what is meant by interference competition. Naureen.
In interference competition, the feeding efficiency of one species is reduced due to the better feeding efficiency of other species.
Good. And what is meant by competitive release? Michael? What is competitive release? Vidur and Meenakshi? Okay, Michael, answer me. What happened yesterday, Michael? Yesterday means the last biology class. You had some confusion with the timetable?
No.
Michael, what happened?
Yes, ma'am.
You thought...
I thought the class was at 2:30, but it was 2:15 instead.
Okay, so see that you don't miss any more classes. So note down the timetable somewhere and stick it over there so that you will not forget. Okay, tell me the answer now. Did you go through what was covered?
Yes.
Okay, then tell me.
A species restricted to a small geographical area expands its distributional range when the species is experimentally
And now,
removed.
without referring your notes, you can tell me the point. You understood, no? You understood the concept. Now, repeat it.
A species that's restricted to a small geographical area can extend its range of living by when the competing species is removed
So,
from
what was inhibiting it from spreading across that habitat?
the competitive species.
The presence of the dominant species. So when that is removed or that particular species is removed, it will be able to expand its distribution. And we also learned about Gore's competitive exclusion principle. So what is that? What is that, Nevin? What is competitive exclusion principle suggested by Gore's? I should give you imposition, I think. Next class onwards, see, anyway, you will be repeating the answer after your friends have said, who will say, Sharon, what is meant by or state Gore's competitive exclusion principle?
Two closely related species competing for the same resources, they cannot coexist
Indefinitely.
And the inferior one
Will
be
what will happen to the inferior one?
They will be eliminated.
They'll be gradually eliminated or eventually eliminated. Nevin, understood? You got it? Okay, then try.
When two correlated
Where are you looking, Nevin?
two correlated.
No, okay. Not correlated. I feel that you are looking somewhere and reading. I don't know why. Maybe my old eyes. Okay, now you can say. Okay, say now. Face me and say.
Two similar species.
Two closely related species. Your eyes are moving. Yes. Two closely related species. Correct.
Two closely related species fighting over the same resources.
Cannot coexist.
Cannot coexist because the inferior.
Indefinitely means like maybe for some time they'll be able to survive there, but not for a longer time. Okay, they cannot coexist indefinitely. And what will happen?
The inferior one.
Competitively inferior one will be eliminated eventually. Nevin, next class onwards. Okay. Better performance when I ask questions. Okay, what does resource partitioning mean, Meenakshi?
And two species, instead of competition, they can choose a different time for feeding and different foraging patterns.
Once again.
For two closely related species, to avoid competition, choose different time for feeding or foraging patterns.
Okay, in that way they can coexist. They'll be able to coexist. This is against Gore's competitive exclusion principle. According to him, if two closely related species, they are having the same requirements, they cannot coexist indefinitely, and one of the species, that is competitively inferior species, will get eventually eliminated. But in resource partitioning, what they say is that if they can go in a mutual understanding by choosing different times for foraging or by following different foraging patterns, both the species, even if they have the same requirement, and they'll be able to coexist in the same habitat. And we learned the example of warbler birds. Okay, so we are going to continue with the topic. Now we need to learn about the types of parasites. The two broad classifications of parasites are ecto and endoparasites. As the name suggests, ectoparasites will be living on the body of, on the surface or outside the body of the host organism, whereas endoparasites will be living within the body, inside the body of the living organism. So let's see more about it. Ectoparasites, they feed on the external surface of the host. They'll be growing on the external surface, and they'll be feeding on the external surface. They are not living within. They'll be feeding from the outer part of the host. Example, lice on humans. So on human head, the lice found over there, and ticks on dogs, small insects, small organisms found among the fur of dogs. Then copepods. So copepod is microscopic, and they are aquatic crustaceans. They are found in water bodies. They come under crustaceans. Okay, they are aquatic, microscopic crustaceans. They can be found growing on the body of different marine fishes. Then cuscuta or a marble. You have learned in, I think, class 7, cuscuta, and they can be seen growing on hedge plants. We call it as hedge plants because these plants are used to make fence or boundary. They'll be growing tightly so that they can be used for marking the boundary or forming a fence around a particular region. So these can be found growing on hedge plants. And those are some of the examples for ectoparasites. I'll repeat again. Ectoparasites are those parasites which feed on the external surface of the host. They are not living inside the body, but they feed from the external surface of the host organism. Some of the familiar examples are ticks found on dogs, lice on human head, then cuscuta found on hedge plants. I told cuscuta marble, it's a parasite, it's a plant parasite. And hedge plants, these are shrubs or small trees, and once they are planted closely, they'll form a boundary or they'll form a fence. And cuscuta plant, coming to, and one more example, copepods, microscopic aquatic crustaceans. They are found growing on different marine fishes. And coming to cuscuta, it completely depends on the host plant for its nutrition. You can see some yellowish colored thread-like structures twining around the plant. Those are cuscuta. They don't have any chlorophyll. When chlorophyll is not there, they cannot carry out photosynthesis and prepare food. No leaves, no chlorophyll. And it depends on the host plant for its nutrients. So it absorbs or derives nutrition from the host plant on which it lives. Then female mosquito. Mosquito, male and female mosquitoes are there, and female mosquitoes are the majority of the diseases. Like you can see, they are female mosquitoes, female Anopheles mosquito, female Aedes mosquito, female Culex mosquito. It's because generally they feed on the juice or the sap present in plants or the nectar from plants, but that is why you can see them among the bushes or among plants. But female mosquitoes, they have to lay the eggs. So for the purpose of reproduction, of laying eggs, they need a diet which is rich in protein. So to compensate for that, or to derive sufficient amount of proteins, they are feeding on the blood of organisms. So that is why you cannot consider them as a parasite. It is not for as a source of food. It's not as a source of food. They are feeding on the blood of organisms, but just to satisfy the protein requirement needed for laying the egg. So we don't consider a female mosquito as a parasite, or mosquitoes are not considered as parasite. The reason is this: they need blood for laying eggs, because blood is rich in protein, so that will be helpful in forming eggs in their body, but not as a source of food. Now, endoparasites, parasites that live inside the host body at different sites. So they can be found growing in different parts of the body. And such organisms, such parasites, you call as endoparasite. These are living within the body. They can affect any of the organs. They can cause diseases. For example, so they can affect liver, kidney, lungs, RBC, etc. And liver fluke, then then giant kidney worm. So different parasites are there. Giant kidney worm is a parasite attacking liver. Then lungs also, lung fluke is there, which can attack lungs. Then RBC, malarial parasite attacks RBC. So different parts of our body can be affected by these parasites, and you can see many parasites are found in the intestine also, taking nutrients from our body. So all those parasites that live inside the host body at different sites, it can be liver, it can be kidney, lungs, or even RBC. Even the intestine, so anywhere. So once it is living within the body of the host and taking nutrients, you can call them as endoparasites. So when compared to ectoparasites, the life cycle of endoparasites are a bit complex when compared to those of ectoparasites. They have simple morphological and anatomical features, because the reason is they are living within the body of the host. So their morphological and anatomical features need not be that specialized, because they are completely dependent on the host organism for its survival. So they don't have or they have very simple morphological as well as anatomical characteristics, but at the same time their reproductive ability or their potential to reproduce will be very high, because that is necessary, because they need to multiply within the body of the host. So they will have a high reproductive potential or high reproduction potential, but at the same time the anatomical and the morphological features will be very simple, and they don't need much specialized features also, because they are living within the body of the host and taking nourishment from them. See, roundworm, tapeworm found in human intestine. The liver fluke attacks human beings too. Then kidney, I told, giant kidney worms are there, and in lungs, lung fluke is there, and it is entering our body by one method by means of which it enters our body is by eating undercooked crab, and crab meat is not properly cooked. So in that way also it can enter our body. Then RBC, malarial parasite. And then we learned their life cycles are very complex. They have high reproduction potential or high reproductive potential. But another important feature is that their morphological and anatomical features will remain very simple. Next is about brood parasitism in birds. Brood, for young ones or offsprings, you can call as brood. Different meanings are there for the word brood. And brood parasitism in birds. You might have heard about the relation between cuckoo and crow. You know, children, what is the connection between these two? Is cuckoo dependent on crows in any way? Have you heard about it? Even there is a Malayalam song. Nobody knows? Okay, leave it. Here are the parasitic birds. Yes?
They put their eggs in the crow's nest.
Ah, exactly. Oh, thank you, Michael. Here are the parasitic birds. They lay eggs in the nest of its host. So that is also a type of parasitism. The parasitic birds, they'll be laying eggs in the in the nest of the host bird, and they are free. Once the eggs are laid over there, rest, nurturing of or taking care of these eggs will be carried out by the host bird. So they are free. So that is brood parasitism. So in this case, or in this phenomenon, the parasitic birds will lay eggs in the nest of the host bird, and the host bird will incubate them, will take care of them. And the host bird will not be able to identify too. They are not able to identify. If they come to know that these eggs do not belong to them, they can reject or they can somehow spoil it. But they are not able to identify. The reason is, by means of evolution, with the passage of time or over years, the eggs of the parasitic bird has undergone evolution, and they resemble the egg of the host both in size and color. So only when it hatches, only when these eggs hatch, they will be able to identify. So till then, by seeing the eggs, they cannot identify. That is because they have developed some adaptations by evolution to resemble the host egg in terms of its size and color. So even if they notice some eggs over there, they cannot make out that these eggs do not belong to that particular bird. This will reduce the chances of the host bird to detect these foreign eggs and ejecting them from the nest. So long as they are unaware, they will not do any damage, or they will not cause any damage to these eggs. And the eggs will be incubated by the host bird, it will be taking care of them, and the parasitic bird is free. They don't have to take care of its eggs. Brood parasitism between cuckoo and crow. So cuckoo will lay eggs in the nest of crow, and crow will take care of it. And once it hatches up, and the cuckoo, the bird, once it is ready, it will just fly away from the nest. But till then, in the younger stages, it will be taken care by means of the crow. Crow is unaware that it's nurturing or taking care of the eggs of some other bird. Once again, brood parasitism in birds. Here the parasitic bird will lay eggs in the nest of its host bird, and the host will incubate them. And over years, or by means of evolution, the eggs of the parasitic bird have developed some adaptations. And because of these evolutionary changes, the host egg and the parasite or the parasitic bird's egg will be similar in terms of size and color. So the host bird will fail to identify the egg of the other bird, and it will take care of these eggs. And one typical example is that between cuckoo and crow. And next we are moving on to commensalism. Commensalism, and what is meant by commensalism? In this type of interaction, are both of them benefited or one is benefited? So tell me, Vidur, what is meant by commensalism? In this interaction, how are the two interacting species affected?
One is benefited and other is unaffected.
Yes, one is unaffected, the other one is benefited. One species will get the benefit, the other species is neither affected nor benefited. Means neither harmed or benefited. One example, orchid. Orchid plants growing as epiphytes on a mango branch. On the branches of mango tree, you can find orchids growing, and their orchid bracket is in brackets, it is mentioned plus. That means orchid is getting the benefit. It's getting a substratum, it's getting a shelter. But it's not causing any harm to the mango tree. The reason is, it is having some root system by means of which it will get attached to the host plant, but they will be growing on its surface, and the nutrients and water they'll be absorbing from the environment. So it is not depending upon the host plant or the host tree for water and any nutrients. It's not depending upon the host plant for its nutrients or water. It just needs a substratum. It just needs some shelter. So it will be found attached or found growing attached to the mango tree, and the root system is only for getting attached to the host tree, but not for obtaining water or nutrients that they will absorb from the environment. So the orchid plant is getting a shelter, but at the same time it's not causing any harm to the mango tree or to the host plant or host tree. Then second example, barnacles. Already we learned about barnacles, and I told you these come under arthropoda, and I had shown you the picture also. And they are found growing on the back of whales. Whales are not affected, but barnacles are benefited, because these barnacles, they are found growing on the back of the whale. And as the whale is moving, the whale will be moving in water. So the barnacles are also getting exposed to new and new areas, and they are getting food. So they'll get food as these whale is moving through water. It's not still in a particular place. So as the whale moves, they also will be, barnacles also will be moving to new places, and they'll be getting food from these different sites. And another advantage that it gets is protection. Since it is found attached to the body of the whale, it gets protection, and when the whale is moving through water, it gets food too. So that is how barnacles are benefited, and it is in no way causing any harm to the whales. So that is second example. And the third one is cattle egret and grazing cattle. Cattle and this cattle egret, and I used to see this interaction or this commensalism when we were coming to the school by means of school bus. So there, most of the days we used to find, like not only me, whoever is traveling in that bus, they used to find that this cattle and this bird moving together, and this bird will be, they'll be sitting on the back of this cattles, and in a way, but here it is mentioned as commensalism, but it can be an example for mutualism also. Since it is given as commensalism in the textbook, learn it as an example for commensalism. And how these are benefited, I'll tell you. This cattle egret, they will be searching for food. They'll be foraging close to where the cattle is grazing. So as the cattle is moving, as these cattle are moving, the bushes also will move, and this will make the insects present there among these bushes to come out, because as the cattle is moving, the insects hiding among the bushes or plants will come out, and so that the egrets can easily, this bird can easily spot them out and can eat them. Okay, and I told you we can even consider it as an example of mutualism, because they'll feed on the different insects and other bugs present on the body of this particular animal, cattle. So that means it is this bird will help these cattle to get rid of those insects which are troubling them. So in that way, you can consider it as mutualism. But since it is given as an example for commensalism in your textbook, learn it like that. So once again, I will repeat the association between egret and cattle egret and the grazing cattle. And this egrets will be foraging very close to where the cattle are grazing. And as the cattle or as the cattle move, or as the cow or buffalo, whichever it is. So as it is moving among the bushes, these bushes will, because of the movement of the bushes, the insects present there, insects hiding among the bushes will come out, and they can easily spot them out. The bird can easily spot them out and feed on these insects. So that is the third example. Now moving on to sea anemone and clownfish. And sea anemone you had learned in class 11 also, 9 and 11. Sea anemone, you know, it's a coelenterate. it has got a cylindrical body, and it's provided with some stinging tentacles, and these tentacles are provided with some stinging cells, nidoblasts. Hope you're remembering all those what you had learned. And that is why this phylum we can even call as Nidaria or Coelenterata, because they have nidoblasts present on their stinging tentacles are present. And clownfish got the name because it is because of the speciality of its color. As you can see, brightly colored, just like that of a clown. And this particular fish will be living in interaction with sea anemone, because the sea anemone, it's provided with stinging tentacles. So when this clownfish is growing along with this sea anemone, the sea anemone will provide them protection. Because of the stinging tentacles, clownfish will be protected from or kept away from its predators. So its predators will not dare to come near the sea anemone, because they are having stinging tentacles. But at the same time, sea anemone is in no way harmed. Okay, children? So these are some of the examples for commensalism. So orchid growing as epiphyte. So epiphytes are plants which grows on the surface of the plant, and at the same time will be deriving its water and nutrients from the environment. They are not dependent on the host organisms for its water or nourishment. Then barnacles, as they are growing on the back of the whale, barnacles get protection and they'll be exposed to new areas from where they can get food as the whales are moving, but whales are not affected in any way. Cattle egret in grazing cattle, and when both of them are moving together, or when the egrets are searching for food in areas where these animals are grazing, because of the movement of the cattle, the insects present among the bushes will come out, and the birds can easily sport them out and feed them, and feed on them. Otherwise, it won't be that easy for them to find out these insects from the bushes. So they can easily prey upon these insects. And sea anemone and clownfish will get protection from the predators, because sea anemone, they are provided with stinging tentacles, and because of these stinging tentacles, the predators of the clownfish will not come near, and so that they will be protected from its predators. So we have understood the different examples. Now we are moving on to the next one, that is mutualism. This is the last population interaction that we need to learn. So as the name suggests, both of them will be benefited. We had seen some of the examples of mutualism earlier also. Can anybody tell me the examples of mutualism that we had already learned? 2 examples. Anybody is remembering? One you had been learning from lower classes. Yes.
Mycorrhizae.
Mycorrhiza will be, these are growing fungi growing along with or growing in the roots of certain trees. Mutual association between certain fungi and roots of higher plants. And at the same time, one common example is lichen. Lichen is a symbiotic association between algae and fungi. This also, you had these 2 associations you had learned in class 11, and lichen you had been learning from class 7 or 8, I think. Not 8, class 7. Okay. So here you can see the picture of lichens. So different types of lichens and different colors also you can find. Lichen is a mutualistic relationship or a symbiotic association between a fungus and a photosynthesizing algae, green algae, or even cyanobacteria. So even cyanobacteria, you know, it is not an algae, even though we call it as blue-green algae, it's a bacterium. So when these two, when an algae or a cyanobacteria live in symbiotic association with a fungus, you can call it as a lichen. Both of them are benefited, and algae will prepare food and it will be provided to the fungus, and the fungus will absorb nutrients, water, etc., and provide it to algae. Then mycorrhizae. These are the associations between fungi and the roots of higher plants. So the fungi helps them. They are living in the roots of the trees. So the fungi will help them to absorb essential nutrients. So since they are present in the roots, with the help of these fungi, the plants or the trees can absorb nutrients from the soil, and in return, the plant will provide them food, because carbohydrates, the trees will be carrying out, or the plant will be carrying out photosynthesis, and a share of food will be provided to the fungi. In return, fungi is assisting the plant to absorb nutrients from the soil. These are two typical examples for mutualism. Mutualism is a symbiotic association where two organisms live together and share their nutrients and shelter. So they'll be living together, they'll be sharing their shelter and nutrients. Lichen is a mutualistic relationship between a fungus and an alga, or even a cyanobacterium. Then mycorrhizae, these are associations between fungi and the roots of higher plants. The fungi assist the plant in absorbing nutrients from the soil, and in return, the plant or the tree will provide a share of the food it produces by means of photosynthesis. Mutualism between plant and animal through pollination and seed dispersion. Okay, mutualism between plants and animals. So let's see some of the examples of mutualistic interaction or mutualistic associations between plants and animals through pollination and seed dispersion. And the first example, fig trees and wasp. Wasp is an insect. It's a type of insect. So the fig species is pollinated only by its partner wasp species. I think we had learned in chapter 2, like some of the plant pollinator relationship that is specific. A plant depends on a specific pollinator. If that pollinator is absent, the plant cannot get pollinated and it won't be able to survive. So similarly, the fig species is pollinated only by its partner wasp species and no other species. So they are specific in this association, because if the fig trees need to be pollinated, then this wasp species is essential. The female wasp will help in pollinating, because this female wasp will be searching in the, or they will be finding out, or they need a place to lay their eggs. So as they search for suitable egg laying sites in the fruits of their this plant, they will be indirectly carrying out pollination. The pollen can stick to their body and they will help in pollinating it. Once again, the association between fig tree and its partner wasp species is specific. For pollinating the flowers of this fig trees, the specific wasp is essential, or that particular species of wasp is essential. So without that, no pollination can take place. And this female wasp will be provided a site for laying its eggs. So on its fruits, it will be laying eggs. So as it is searching for a suitable site for laying eggs in fruits, they will be pollinating the flower or its inflorescence indirectly. And when it moves to other plants, or when it moves to other areas, they will bring about pollination. Or within the same plant itself, this pollen can be dusted on the stigma of another flower and can result in pollination. The fig offers the wasp some developing seeds also as food for the wasp larvae. So not only sites for laying eggs, it will also provide some developing seeds which can be eaten by the larvae of these wasps. So that is a mutualistic association. Both of them are benefited and none of them are harmed. The wasp will be getting a site for laying eggs, and it also provides, the fig tree also provides the larvae of wasp some developing seeds. And in return, the wasp is pollinating. All these are not done purposely, but all these are happening. So when the wasp or the female wasp species is searching for some suitable egg laying sites, the pollen can get, the pollen will get stuck to their body, and that will bring about pollination. Orchids show, next example for mutualism between plants and animals. Orchids show great diversity in its floral patterns. You might be knowing different types, attractively shaped and colored, or different patterns of orchids you have seen. Some are very attractive. They come in different floral patterns. They attract the right pollinator. So usually the orchid plants or the orchid flowers are pollinated by bees and bumblebees. So they have, or they are brightly colored, or they come in different colors and patterns so as to attract the insects for pollination, so that they can ensure pollination. Because of these bright colors and attractive patterns, the pollinators will get attracted and they can ensure pollination. And some of the orchids provide them rewards like pollen or nectar. All these rewards will be provided to the pollinator, but not all orchids are providing rewards to its pollinator. Some of them are giving, or that is a mutualistic association, but in some cases they may not provide. And here this is very important, sexual deceit of Orchids. Sexual deceit of Orchids. Let's see what is this phenomenon. So in this picture also you can see this particular orchid. It's a Mediterranean orchid, and one petal, you can see one of the petals of its flower. Okay, one of the petals of its flower is resembling a female bee. The dark colored part, it's resembling a bee, a female bee, in terms of color, size, and the marking, the pattern or the size, color. So at a glance, it looks like a female bee. And what happens? Male bee, assuming that or thinking that, or it thinks, or it is because of the appearance, because of the size, color, and markings which are similar to that of a female bee, male bee misunderstand that this is female bee, and they will pseudo-copulate. Copulation means mating process. Pseudo, false. It's a false copulation, because actually it's not a female bee, it's only the petal of the flower. So they will pseudo-copulate with the flower, and it gets dusted with pollen. So when this bee again pseudo-copulates with another flower, then the process of pollination or the transfer of pollen will take place, resulting in pollination, leading to fertilization. I'll repeat again. Orchids is a Mediterranean orchid. It shows a very unique adaptation to carry out pollination. And in this orchid, one of its petals will be resembling that of a female bee, not only in its size but also in its color and pattern, the markings. So the male bee, seeing this petal, misunderstands that this is female bee and mates with it, pseudo-copulates. It's a false copulation. So assuming that this is a female bee, it will be copulating with it, and in this process, or when it carries out pseudo-copulation, the pollen grains of the flower will be dusted on its body, and when this process is continued, means when it carries out pseudo-copulation with another orchid flower of the same type, the pollen will get transferred to that flower, resulting in pollination and leading to fertilization. And another very important point to note is that if the female bee, in case if the female bee is changing its color pattern, size or color or pattern, so as a result of evolution, if there arises some changes in the body of the female bee, accordingly, the orchid flower also should make changes. Otherwise, what happens? The pseudo-copulation will not take place. If there are drastic changes, or if the male bee is not misunderstanding it as the female bee, the pseudo-copulation will not take place. So, as and when the female bee is undergoing some changes, this particular flower also should rise up to the situation, and they also should develop some changes. Only then they will be able to survive or continue to get pollinated. So if the female bees color patterns change slightly during evolution, pollination success will get reduced, because then the male bee will not get attracted to the flower. If it has to get attracted to the flower, that petal should resemble the female bee. Okay, children? 9:21. Okay, what are the examples for mutualism that I mentioned? Malavika, just one example.
Fig trees and wasp.
Fig trees and wasp. How are they associated?
The fig species help in pollination. And the wasp, the female wasp, have a site for laying eggs. And provides developing seeds for the wasp.
Larvae of the wasp. And what is meant by sexual deceit, Gayatri? What is sexual deceit? I didn't notice the time. Okay. What is meant by sexual deceit? In which orchid it is found?
In orchids.
Which orchid? Mediterranean orchid, that is Orchids. And tell me about their association.
It resembles the female bee in the size and markings and all, so that the male bee misunderstands the flower for the female bee.
And they will, what is the term?
Pseudocopulation.
Pseudocopulates. And then what happens during the course of pseudocopulation? Meenakshi, what happens when pseudocopulation is taking place? The pollen grains will get dusted on its body. Then it
another plant
flower, it will result in a pollination, which will lead to fertilization. And mycorrhiza means what? Punya, what is meant by, or what type of association is mycorrhizae or mycorrhiza?
Association between fungus.
What type of association? Mutualism. And tell me what it is. What between?
Fungus and roots of higher plants.
Fungus and roots of higher plants. And how are these two benefited, Mehek? How are fungi and the roots benefited? Roots means the plant benefited. Yes.
They share the nutrition and shelter.
Can you speak a little louder?
They share the nutrition and shelter.
Don't simply say it in one word, one sentence like that. What do fungi provide? Fungi will help them to absorb nutrients from the soil, and in return, what do they get?
Shelter.
Tree, green in color. What do they provide? Tree can carry out which process, being green in color? Photosynthesis. So they will provide nutrient, means they will provide a share of food or carbohydrates. Okay, clear? So the tree will be getting a source, or the fungi will assist them to absorb nutrients from the soil, and in return fungi will be getting carbohydrates from the tree. Clear? Yes. So we will continue next day. So thank you, children. Now those who have to, we have completed the chapter. Now those who have to take seminar based on this topic, be prepared next class. So thank you, children. See you next